So, our 24th pattern of the month film. Welcome to this little clip. Today I'm going to tie one fly that I think I first tied it like mid-70s. The classic one looks like this. Those of you who know your classic flies can recognize the Silver Wilkinson. There is a Silver Wilkinson and a Wilkinson in the classic literature, and they vary a little bit. But what's typical is the magenta and the light blue and the silver, I would say. And I'm going to tie it like this. Are they similar? Is it possible to see that this is actually originating from the same pattern? Maybe, but they are extremely they are extremely different, and for sure they will fish extremely different. Okay, so let's start and see what you think. I would say that the Silver Wilkinson is a superb cold water fly. We fish it for our spring sea trout, and it's one of my favorite flies for fresh run spring sea trout, and maybe better on a sunny day, maybe better when the water is a little bit clear, but it's a superb fly. And yeah, enough talk, let's tie. So I'm gonna tie it on the medium fits magenta, fluorescent magenta, and then you can actually choose to do the magenta X-small or the blue X-small. I'm gonna do magenta today, and the reason for that is that I'm gonna put a blue cone on. And I start by cutting this, and we get this question, how long should the tube be? And I will choose a medium tube that's about half the length of the finished fly. So if I do one here, it's good on our cutter. I almost not dare to say that the cutter is soon here, but I'll actually be surprised if we not have them before we do next film. But you heard me say this so many times now, you're sick and tired of it, but it's right around the corner. Okay, so I do this, and I do the magenta, put them together, cut the angle on the medium, and today I'm going to use a white thread, a light fly where I want the color of the thread to disappear in the materials. I'm going to tie like I do with most of my flies with a R12O, and I start by putting some thread onto the part I just cut to make the medium hold the extra small. No glue, sorry, and just a bit of thread to keep them together and keep the flexibility in the tubing. I then do mirage, and I do the same like I do most of the time. I back down the mirage over the tubing, and I turn it and tie it in. This way I don't get any thread under the mirage. When the mirage gets wet, the thread will be seen through it. Even if it's a white thread, you will see it through it. Do the fish care? No. The tire? Yeah. And I'm gonna put on a little tail today. I'm gonna do, those of you following know that I actually don't use that much tails. On the loose bodies, on the TTTs and the BTTs, I don't use tails. And on most of my flies, I tie with the hackle wound around the last hackle. I don't use a tail. But today I'm going to do a tail, and I'm going to do it with a magenta, fluorescent magenta tail, and I tie it in, make sure I tie it in and use half the diameter of the tube And here I can do a little trick. I can just move the thread front and tie in the spare part that is like the leftovers instead of cutting it. This way I get a taper body easier, where with a taper body I mean that it should be narrower in the end and fatter in the front. I want my fly to grow like that. So I can do that. Makes it maybe stronger too. And I'm going to use two of our hollow braids. I'm going to use a silver one and a magenta, the one we call evil magenta. And here you can also do any way you want. You can tie the silver body like on the classic fly, or like I'm going to do today. I want this fly to be a bit more magenta, so I'm going to use the magenta for body, and I'm going to use the ribbing, the silver for ribbing. So I always start by tying in my ribbing first, and then I tie in the body material on top. And what is so good with our braid is that you use same material. Then I take this and I look so I don't have, you see I have a little bit of thread there. I don't want thread to be seen or to be exposed, so I back down this. This is an extremely strong material, and I just build it up over what I just cut away of the tail material. Tie it in underneath, secure with a few turns. Normally I use 3 to 6 turns to secure it. Don't cut it too close. Make sure that even if it starts to move a little bit, it shouldn't, but if it won't slide away from the thread, and the fly will be destroyed. On most of my flies I do dubbing in front, and that's because I want this fly to grow. I want it to have this drop shape. The front part of the body should be heavier than the last part. That's why I start with the thinnest material, a little thicker, and then I use the dubbing. On the small ones I use our SSS dubbing, and on the bigger ones, bigger flies, I use glitz. And today I'm going to use glitz. This is going to be a big fly. And the glitz is so long fibered, it's super easy to dub on. Just spin it on the thread a little bit at a time. Back down the thread at the dubbing so you are sure you're over the braid and not expose the thread too much. In the dubbing the thread is always there, but not in a bad way. And make sure when you dub on that you overdress it a bit. If you don't overdress and then brush it, it will look too skinny. And I'm saving at least 4 millimeters of the medium. Today I'm going to do a fly which is fairly tricky, or not tricky, but there's quite a few hackles and stuff here to tie on. So make sure you don't work your thread too much in the front, so you get too much of the fly to be tied on the extra small. It's better, makes a stronger fly to have it tied on the medium one. Okay, so first feather is, here we go. It's gonna be, oh, I had one here, I think. Yeah, it's gonna be a regular cock's hackle. And I just strip off a little bit of the soft and tie it in close to the dubbing. Few turns. And maybe you heard me say this before, I never take this and walk back like this, because then I get too few fibers in the front. I always start with 1 turn and then I do this. And together with that, I'm going to end up with 5 turns together with the first one. Take my braid. Normally I do this by my fingers. can use our little plier too, but normally fingers is good. And then I take this and I spin it. And it's so good with our super soft braid, even though it's strong like hell. It's really, really soft, so I can spin it down to almost any size I want. And I do one turn over every turn of hackle, and I end it below the fly on the bottom, just so, because here I'm gonna have quite a lot of stuff with the wing and all these flashes and materials, and it's better to use the bottom. And then I take this, fold it back and tie it in. If I fold it back, it can't slip. And cut it off. And you can see now how this fly is turning much more magenta than the original one, but this is what I want for my spring fishing. So I take the meanest brush on the market. I think this is a mean machine, and I just brush out some of these fibers. If I do that, I'm gonna get a bulky front part that's also extremely translucent. One or two too long, take them away now or later. Okay, so now I will tie in a little bit of flash. I want the flash underneath. The fish will see the fly from underneath, and if there's a little bit of sparkle, the heavier fibers underneath the wing and a few fibers inside the wing. That's how I think when I do this. And I'm gonna keep on doing the magenta. Not much left here. A few strands. Remember when you take them that you're gonna double them, meaning they'll be twice as many in the fly. Spread them so they're not too even. Spread them about 1/2 centimeter, tie them in. Make sure to press them down on the sides. 1 or 2 turns and fold them back. Try to keep as much of the material now on the medium tubing. Are they too long? Taper. Never cut like this, then they go the same length and they're going to stick together in the water. If there's one long one, it's going to start move and work the material apart. So what I do is I pull and cut. I can do it a few times like this. If there's 1 or 2 too long, I can take them away afterwards when the fly is ready. Okay, so classic way, tie the hackles, tie in the wing. I'm going to do it a bit different. I'm going to tie in some of the hackles now, and then I'm going to tie in some of the wing, a little bit of hackle again, and then to end up the classic way where the wing is spreading the hackles. But to hide everything in the half turbo cone, which is the one I'm going to use, it's good to start with some of the hackles. So I'm going to use, what am I going to use? I'm going to use 2 colors of ostrich. And I just love those ostrich feathers. I think they're fantastic. They're really durable and they move quite a bit in the water. So 2 colors. I'm going to start with the blue. The reason for that is that I'm going to end up with a third hackle that's going to be light blue too. So what I do is I look at the feather. If there's one good part and one bad one, I will take the bad one away, because I don't want to have too many fibers, meaning I can't do, or I can do, 1 turn, but it's much harder to get it even than to do 2 turns. So I'll strip away one side. And if you want to, you can save those. They're really nice fibers, and you can put them in a dubbing loop and you can make one more fly out of the same feather. I'm a bit spoiled because we have all these fantastic ostrich now coming in our feather packs. And yeah, sorry for that. We should be careful not using too much, but I'm gonna use 2 feathers. And I do it like this. Create, pull away some of the fibers, create a little bit of triangle, and I tie that in. And I tie it in underneath. Then I take this and I just wind it on. And if I do 2 turns here now, then move my fingers up, pull away the fibers that I don't tie in, so I don't get them in the way. I get very few fibers, but extremely even. Just as many on the top as on the bottom. And if I want to have a few more on the bottom, I can just fold these, or I cut them up like that. Okay, so first hackle. Very soft, gives a lot of motion. Then I'm going to start with the hair in the wing, and I use magenta, a dyed one. There's no animals with this color, luckily maybe. And I take a wing that should be 60 to 70% about of the total wing. So this is the biggest part of the wing. And I always brush it through to untangle the fibers. And I hold it so I have it about 1 centimeter wide, and I put it in, look at the length, a little longer, maybe a little longer, and I tie it in. And I tie it in on the medium tubing. I can pull this and push it a little bit like this to make sure I get everything where I want it. Okay, looking good. Sometimes I press it down too much on the sides, and I don't want that. And I cut it, and I cut it fairly close to the edge between the medium and the extra small. Here I can do like this. Since I'm gonna have a lot of material, I can take a little bit of glue, and I put a little bit of glue just on this piece of hair. Here I changed this from being the weakest to being an extremely strong part of the fly. Our thinnest flash, angel hair, in the color we call clear water blue. All our SSS materials are made of 5 different colors. This is a bit of silver, a couple of blues, a little bit of pearl, and I take this and I tie it in 1 or 2 turns and fold it back and secure. I can look at the length of these afterwards. I see I have 1 or 2 that's really long, but I can do that afterwards, just turning the fly in my hand and taking away the long ones. Okay, so now we're there. Let's do, now I can do, either I can do the hackle or I can do the next part of the wing. But I'm gonna do now the next part of the wing. You can decide what you think is better for you, but I'm going to do a piece of gray, and I'm using natural gray material. This is extremely soft and it's extremely translucent, and that is what I want here. Make sure I don't take too much. I'm going to tie in 1 more wing after this. Where's my brush? Everything disappearing. And I just pull this, even this is super soft, I pull it through my brush to make sure it's not tangled. And then I take the gray and I put the gray in on top, make sure it's longer now, and make sure it's down the sides, covering up all the magenta. Just like that. Looking good. And then again, cut. And of course it's easier to just take a bunch of hair and a little bit of flash, but I think by mixing like this, we get a fly that will swim a lot better. Okay, so now I could have done this before, but now I'm going on with next hackle. See what we can do. Take this one, I think. No, that was a little bit. I'll take another one here. And what I look at when I choose one of these is that I want one with the right length of fibers. I don't want them to be too long. Okay, take this and I do the same here. Take away one part, create a little triangle, just like that, cut it, tie it in. Make sure I work with my thread on the medium, and then I just do my 2 turns, same as before. Take up my fingers and pick up the fibers that I'm not tying in like this. That way I get less tangle and tie it in. See, this time I only got one fiber that is pointing the wrong direction, that I can just fold back. Okay, so now I have 2 really mobile hackles, and I have a translucent soft wing. Now I'm gonna turn this into a classic style of fly where I divide everything, but to do this the right way, I'm gonna end up with a wing, but I have one more hackle and I have jungle cocks and a few things. So what I do now is that I do next hackle, then I divide everything on top. Or I can now put in the jungle cocks and save just the top, but I'm gonna do it this way now, this time. So where are we? We have done that, and now we're gonna have one of the pheasant rump feathers, and here I will work with a light blue one. Take away the soft part and I tie it in the tip, like I do with all hackles actually, that I wind on like this. Create that little triangle, and you can see always when I use scissors, I put the scissor on my finger like this, and then I move the material up so I get support. That way I'm a lot more accurate than just trying to be stable. Couple of turns, double, fold back. I don't have to double the feather that I divided, because then it's only fibers one side. Here I need to double by holding back the part that I'm tying in and secure it. And the thing when I do with a need to have the thread on the right side here. With the thing when I work with the half turbo cone is now I have to start thinking that everything I tie in here needs to be hidden in the cone, and there's not very much space. So I have to be careful here now, not putting the thread in front of each other, but put it on top like this. Then I won't have a problem. Okay, I will take one more piece of hair, and here I use also gray. This is actually almost brown, but I'm gonna use this anyway. And it's extremely long and extremely soft. And I always try to use the softest part of the hair on top. That's where I get most of the motion in the fly. So I brush through this, very few fibers. Here is where I divide things. Putting this in, it's almost too brown here, but I'll use this anyway. Like that, down on the sides, 1 or 2, 3 turns. And here I divide everything. Take this, cut it super close. Sharp scissors. Then I take a little bit of angel hair again, nasty rusty. Few fibers. These are going to mix with my peacock. Too many. I always complain about the light when I do this because the light is on your side. But I'll manage. Divide it a little bit. Tie in the few fibers. Important here, 1 turn, fold back, 1 turn. I don't want too much thread here. Then I go over on the peacock, and here I use a blue one that's been not bleached but dyed blue the way it is. If you want to have a super light fly, you can use one that is bleached first. We have both in our feather packs actually, and I must say the quality of this stuff that we found is just amazing. Peacock can be really tricky to get. 3 to 5 turns, strands, divide them, and then tie them in. It's much better, and especially now when I need to use so little thread. Look at the length. Put them in on top. Make sure they also come down and divide on the sides. Few turns. And as long as I don't cut them, I can move them a bit so they're even. Take this and I pull it up before I cut off. It makes it a bit easier and makes it easier for me to get, here I missed one here, to get to cut it close enough. Okay, so now you can see, I have one sticking up here, but you can see how this is now divided, how the material I put on top divides the hackle, like in the classic fly where the wing is on the top. Okay, jungle cocks, and I was hoping to show you our finished substitute. And since I've been showing you stuff that you still can't buy, I'm waiting a little bit longer. So I'm still using the natural feather here, and I don't know if I have to tell you, but I do it anyway. Always cite this, always work with the legal feathers. Look at how they are curved like this, and if you need to curve it, you curve it over your thumbnail, form it, shape it, and tie it in. I always start with the one on my side like this, and I use the tension in the thread here now, pulling really hard. And this, I think I did this with 2 turns. I do normally 3 maybe, but this was secured in a nice way. Not too much, because then you will have problems with the cone. Okay, the same, look from above. Make sure I get them to be same length and tie it in. Make sure they are even. Uneven jungle cocks can make the fly spin around. Does it look good? I think it looks good. Okay, so since I do like this, I will use, I told you I used, I can pick out my organizer boxes. One of the best things we ever done, I think. They are bloody good. To keep good order in all these cones. And I put this on. Maybe I can show you. I have a bunch of them here. This is how I keep my stuff. Different cones, different colors, different qualities, turbos, regular cones, TTTs, BTTs. Everything is there. Pick the right box, you have what you need. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little glue, press this down, take the fly out of the vise. And those of you who've seen how I do the glue is that I try not to mess around here. I just take a little bit of glue, put the glue away from the fly. Then I take the thread and I pick up the glue. Make sure it gives it a second or two, pull it a little bit, make sure it is strong and there, and then I press down the cone. Take the fly out of the vise. Make sure now that you don't get any thread seen. And if you've done it right, with few turns of thread, and bit careful, you won't see any thread there. That's the hard part with the half turbo. With the turbo you cover up everything, it's much easier. Okay, and a lighter, and I have to excuse you, I didn't find a lighter to match the fly. I'll have to go and buy some lighters here now. Started by using lighters in the same color as the fly. Okay, Newton found out things want to go that way, so I don't do this. Plastic will melt there, I won't get a good hole. The flexible fits opens up like a little flower when I do this. And I just do it carefully, a little bit at a time, and I will have a good hole for my leader. And don't touch it until it's dry. Dry. Here we go. Okay, so I take the fly and I put it in my hand like this. And I look where I have this longest angel hairs. And the reason I don't want them to be as long as the longest strands, I want them to be a little shorter, is that they have a tendency to tangle in the hook. Okay, does it look good? For me it looks super good. I normally say I have 4 criteria on a fly. First of all, I want it to have the drop form. I want it to be translucent, so the light can go through the fly. And the reason for that is that I think if the fish can be a little insecure on what's coming, that makes the fly more attractive to them, or they get a little more curious on what's coming. I want the fly to reflect light, and what I mean is, you're smart guys, you know that if it doesn't reflect light we couldn't see it, but I want a little bit of sparkle in it. Okay, last, maybe most important, I want it to look alive. I want it to be tied with so soft material that it actually swims. And I know I've been saying it a million times, but a good fly should look like it will bite the leader and swim off. Then it's a good fly. Okay, maybe a bit tricky with all these hackles and this stuff, but I think it's worth it. It's a technique where you use ostrich and mixing two different kinds of colors of ostrich, stripping them off, getting same amount of fibers on 2 turns as on 2 turns with the whole feather. I used 4 turns of half feathers. And well, what are we? 2 weeks away from the opening day on the M. This is one of the flies that I really like to fish for the fresh run fish and taking some really good fish on the Silver Wilkinson. They differ a lot, but I'm sorry to say that I think that I will outfish this any day. And that's where we are. This is our 24th film, I have said, and as before, we have our packs. Those of you who don't tie and maybe interested to fish this, we have a little pack with some ready flies, but we also have the pattern packs. They've been really popular. I don't know how many we sold, thousands of those, and there's enough stuff in here to tie at least 10 flies. We tried to keep super quality materials, and we actually pack them ourselves. So if you're interested, check out the web, it's all there. And thank you for watching. One of my favorite sunshine flies, and especially springtime. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay strong and tie up.